Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking a really fascinating philosophical framework laid out by Jeff Feng. It tackles a massive, universal human desire, escaping earthly suffering and finally ascending to a higher plane. But what's so compelling here is that rather than treating ascension as this vague, abstract ideal, the text treats it as a surprisingly practical, step-by-step procedural task. So let's break down exactly what it takes.
So here's a huge paradox to kick things off. The text opens with this rather stark observation. Throughout human history, countless individuals have desperately sought a way to ascend, yet very few have actually pulled it off. Why is that? Well, according to the author, the failure basically comes down to two simple reasons. First, people are just blindly stumbling around because they haven't figured out the actual theory behind escaping reincarnation. They literally lack a roadmap. And second, even among the tiny handful of people who do manage to find that path, almost no one follows through with the everyday practice required to walk it. It's this massive disconnect between what we want and what we actually do.
Section 1. The universal desire for heaven. Look, the text argues that the overarching, universal goal of mankind is pretty clear: escaping the cycle of reincarnation and avoiding all the suffering of the earthly world. It's presented as this innate human longing that we all share. But as we just mentioned, the real tragedy here is that despite an absolute abundance of spiritual seekers throughout history, success is unbelievably rare. And that's because people are trapped. They're operating purely on instinct rather than a clear, actionable theory. They know exactly what they want, to escape the bitter sea of the human world, but they have absolutely zero idea how the actual mechanics of that escape work.
Section 2. 3 steps to escape reincarnation. Now, what's actually wild here is just how straightforward the author makes this out to be. The text explicitly states that the core principle of escaping reincarnation is not complicated at all. In fact, it requires exactly 3 steps. Step 1. Sever your worldly attachments. You literally have to let go of the ties binding you here. Step 2. Repay your debts and accumulate enough heavenly treasure to basically afford entry. And step 3. Perfect and beautify your soul garden so that the actual quality of your life meets the standards of a heavenly citizen. The author's big point is this: anyone with basic logical thinking skills can grasp these 3 requirements. It's not some hidden secret, yet very few people actually put in the work to do it. And that brings us to a really thought-provoking transition question posed directly by the text. Is the sole purpose of life just to cultivate the Tao? The author points out that institutions like Christian monasteries or Buddhist temples exist precisely for this reason, so people can isolate themselves, sever attachments, and perfect their non-material lives. But wait, if the goal is strictly just to reach heaven, why are we even here on Earth in the first place? It's a profound question, right? It completely challenges traditional monastic approaches and sets up the source's highly unique take on human purpose. Section 3. The mobile phone analogy. Okay, I absolutely love this part. The text uses this brilliant everyday metaphor to explain the creator's intentions. Think about a mobile phone. When a tech company creates a smartphone, it doesn't build it so the phone can just sit there on a desk, meditate, and spiritually improve itself, right? No, it's created for human use and to generate a profit for the company. The author draws a direct parallel here to humanity. The creator didn't place humans on Earth solely for us to cultivate our own spirituality and eventually just go to heaven. If that were the whole plan, it would have been infinitely easier to just create people directly in heaven from day one. Instead, just like the phone, humanity was created to provide actual, functional value to the creator. To drive this home, the author makes a super grounded observation. Eyes were created for seeing, and legs were created for walking. If human life didn't have an active, physical purpose right here on Earth, having these physical attributes would be completely redundant. The author notes that this simple truth should really be obvious to anyone paying attention. Life is not just a waiting room for heaven. It has a required earthly function that you have to fulfill alongside your spiritual cultivation. Section 4. The looming ecological crisis. All right, here's where the text completely shifts gears, moving from abstract philosophy to a sense of immediate, ticking clock urgency. The author warns that at our current rate of human development and massive resource demand, Earth's ecology is going to collapse, and soon. And obviously, the collapse of our ecology means that human survival itself is in grave danger. Humanity is literally sitting on a precipice here. Time is rapidly running out to prepare spiritually, simply because the physical world we inhabit is on the brink of total failure. Which brings us to the core thesis and the title of our explainer, encapsulated perfectly in this quote: "Plan ahead for a century, act before it's too late." So, what does planning ahead actually mean in this context? It means you must urgently complete those 3 steps we discussed earlier: severing your worldly attachments, repaying your debts, and building up your soul garden right now. Because if you wait until the ecological crisis actually hits full force, the text warns it will be way too late to try and fix your spiritual standing. You will lose all agency over your own fate.
Section 5. Obstacles at Heaven's Gate.
Let's bring this abstract theology right back down to harsh reality, because the text perfectly illustrates the tragic irony of human attachment. The author gives some highly relatable, mundane scenarios. Imagine you're nearing death, and you want to be cremated to sever all your physical ties, but your family is weeping, fighting over your inheritance, and refusing to honor your wishes. The spiritual consequence? Your worldly attachments remain unsevered. Or, say you want to ascend to the 1,000-year world, but someone down on Earth says you owe them money, or even just a simple favor. That unpaid debt literally holds your soul back like an anchor. Or maybe you actually reach the very border of heaven, but you're denied entry and sent right back down because you have 0 deposits in the heavenly bank. Your earthly actions have immediate, concrete spiritual consequences that can completely halt your ascension. But get this, the text goes even deeper into the gritty details of our daily lives, pointing out the absolute mundane habits that will keep heaven's gates permanently close to you. The author explicitly warns that even if your debts are fully paid and your heavenly bank account is maxed out, if you have habits like simply not finishing the food on your plate, or relieving yourself anywhere, or constantly gossiping behind people's backs, you are going to be rejected. Why? Because the basic quality of your life and your daily habits just don't meet the behavioral standards of a heavenly citizen. The irony is pretty striking, right? A simple, uncorrected bad habit could literally undo a lifetime of spiritual desire. So, to wrap up the core warning we've been exploring today, cultivating a path to heaven is not some unsolvable puzzle. The theory is shockingly simple. But as the author powerfully states, beautiful wishes remain just dreams if you cannot actually act when the time comes. If your daily practices fail, if you still owe favors, if you're still gossiping, you will be entirely at the mercy of the impending crisis. You simply won't be able to act according to your own wishes when it matters most. Which leaves us with this final, honestly pretty provocative thought to reflect upon. Based on the entire framework we've explored today, if that ecological crisis arrived today, literally right now, are your debts actually repaid? Are your worldly attachments truly severed? It's a fascinating lens through which to view our everyday actions and our long-term spiritual readiness. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this breakdown sparked your curiosity and gave you a clear, engaging look at this unique perspective on life, purpose, and what exactly might come next.